if these two fellows are out on a joyride. Where are they off to? What are they supposed to be doing? Who are they, anyway? You'll hear in a moment or two, but what matters most right now is that they're getting on together just like old friends. But they didn't find this same friendly common ground right away, not when they first met a few days ago in very different surroundings. This is one of Dublin's gracious squares. Nearby, these elegant Georgian buildings house the headquarters of the authority responsible for the development of peat in Ireland. At this moment, though, they're also housing a couple of men who speak the same language, but just don't understand each other at all. The subject under discussion, naturally enough, is peat, an intriguing topic, but one that's always collected more than its share of popular misconceptions. You listen.
You're just wasting your time. It's a technical process, Mr. Hunter. Mechanical, scientific. You must approach it factually.
Well, quite frankly, Mr. O'Malley, as I told you, my editor is expecting me to give it the romantic treatment. You know, in the tradition of the old fog road, the turf cutter's donkey, all that kind of thing.
Very probably he is, but you can't expect to mix fairy stories and peat as well. They don't mix. You must realize this is an industry.
I only realized, sir, that he expects me to turn out a 2,000-word story in your organization. And I hate to think of what'll happen if that story isn't forthcoming, complete with fairies, if necessary.
Oh, I see your trouble, all right. But I'm only concerned with one thing, to see that you get peat in a true perspective, a present-day perspective. There's no place for old-time fantasies, I assure you.
But, sir, my editor...
Look, your editor must find out that this is the stuff, milled peat, that's making Ireland's electricity. And so does sod peat. This is replacing other fuels in more and more of our leading factories. And the thousands of Irish housewives use nothing else but peat briquettes to heat their homes and do their cooking. If you like, just for a start, show him our press book. It'll tell him how Borden and Móna came into being. Show him some of the highlights of its short history, things he's probably never even thought about before. He'll see that what we are doing is one of the biggest things that's ever happened in Irish industry. Do you know that in the technique of producing and utilizing peat today, Ireland is a world leader? No. How's that for a story?
Well, you certainly suggested an entirely new angle.
How long have you got here?
Let's see, today is Tuesday. I'm flying to Istanbul Saturday night.
I'd like you to spend a couple of days coming around the country with me.
Oh, I couldn't put you to that trouble.
No trouble at all. We're only too glad to help visiting journalists. We know we've really got something to show them. See things for yourself. Ask questions. I think I can promise you a story a whole lot more romantic than the one your editor had in mind, because it's a real story, a true romance.
Okay, that's the deal.
Good.
Well, where do we begin? Right out in the bog, huh?
You'll see.
No, they're not undermining the morale of the press, nor are they fortifying our friend the journalist against hardships ahead. This is the start of his education. He's learning at first hand how this hotel, one of the largest and finest in Dublin, made a change in its heating system some time ago. All the warmth for the underfloor radiators that heat the lofty rooms and spacious corridors of this huge building, all the piping hot water for its hundreds of bathrooms and wash basins, all this is today provided efficiently and unobtrusively by peat. And the cost? Well, the manager finds that the change affects a substantial saving in comparison with the cost of imported fuel. Pioneers in this field were the famous Irish hospital sweepstakes. Their offices have been heated by peat for many years, and now industry is following suit. This wallboard factory is no longer dependent on those who fix the price of imported fuel. It's enjoying instead the security guaranteed by Ireland's own fuel, which is remarkably stable in price and refreshingly free from the influences of international tensions on price and delivery. Some time ago, a world-famous biscuit factory decided to change over to peat for steam raising. They did so because they were convinced that not only would it mean a big saving, but it would also make an important contribution to the economy of the nation. For the first time in her history, Ireland is exploiting that tremendous store of energy locked up in the boglands for 10,000 years. "95% water. That is virgin bog. Spongy, treacherous, bleak. Yet with that same strange beauty common to all of nature's desert places. Develop 130,000 acres of barren land. It took faith to build an industry on foundations like these. It took courage to invest millions of pounds and hundreds of millions of man-hours. Yes, this has been called a bold venture, but it's a venture that's paid off both financially and in social progress. The secret of its success has lain in revolutionizing the whole basis of peat production, transforming a process that for thousands of years had been laborious and entirely manual into one that was efficient and almost completely mechanical. Mechanization in a really big way. This is a bog where sod peat is produced. The stripping machine acts like a giant plane, cutting away the clogging tangle of moss and heather roots from the top surface. But long before this machine arrived on the scene, mechanization had already started to change the face of the bogland. 3 years earlier, the giant high-powered wheel of the disc ditcher had scored a network of trenches, drains, and cross-drains across the virgin bog. Since then, vast quantities of water have been drained away. Even so, this has only reduced the amount of water present from 95% to 90% or so. In fact, there is more solid matter in milk than in a peat bog at this moisture content. But when the tangled top surface has been stripped away, there remains a reasonably firm skin capable of supporting wide-track machinery of amazing dimensions. "40 tons is the weight of this sod peat bagger, a machine which makes the excavation of peat seem so remarkably simple. The buckets remove the soggy material from the face of the bag. The machine macerates it and then extrudes it as a continuous sod, which is carried forward on the spreader arm. As the bagger moves forward, so the spreader arm goes with it. Down on the ground go the great 150-foot lengths of peat, to be cut neatly into separate sods by a line of 200 discs. There are 44 machines like this in operation. In one season, they produce between them 1 million tons of sod peat. The peat has now dried out somewhat, ready for the sod peat windrowers to roll into action. As each machine moves steadily forward, its 2,000 pins spear up the sods and toss them up to a chute. From the rear of the chute, they are deposited in neat windrows to be dried by sun and wind. Then, a little later, this machine turns the windrows over to expose new surfaces to be dried. Under certain conditions, these processes have still to be done by hand, which provides a considerable amount of well-paid seasonal employment. When the sods have become hard and brick-like, the 6 conveyors of the collector work their way down the windrows, picking up all the peat and building it into a neat rick. When the peat is required for dispatch, this machine travels down the whole length of the rig, automatically loading it into waiting rail wagons. The whole series of operations, from bagger to collector, takes from 6 to 8 weeks, according to weather, and starts for a second time when the first crop has been collected. Each cycle is planned and executed with an impressive precision and speed, for almost every part of it is accomplished mechanically. Mechanization of the land has been given a new meaning out here in the bogs of Ireland. But it is a concept not limited solely by the boundaries of the peat-producing areas. A complete light railway system, and all it implies, has gradually been developed over many parts of the country. So, Móna, whose prime interest is the production of fuel, has been involved in a number of large-scale engineering projects as well. Bridges over canals, tunnels under main railways, and the broad Shannon span. Precision machinery plays an important part behind the scenes in winning peat nowadays. Young men like these are needed more and more for skilled training in the vocational schools and within the board's own apprenticeship schemes. TWI, training within industry, is a vital factor in its educational program. And those instructing the technicians of tomorrow must first go back to school themselves today.
Leakage of lubricant past this thread via a very long capillary passage is effectively sealed by a ring of plastic packing.
The development of native resources has created new opportunities where young men can learn new skills and live full lives in their own country. Not long ago, the best future this boy could look forward to was casual work here and there, with in all probability occasional periods of unemployment. Apart from the opportunity of a good, regular job, safety committees and conciliation councils operated by management and men together help to make working conditions not only safe, but satisfying. New churches and new schools have sprung up in many districts which used to be neglected areas. The pattern of living of whole communities has been changed radically. This is one of 7 new villages built by the board for its workers. This new and vital industry has brought higher standards of living to many homes and brightened horizons which once were bleak and dismal. Peat is giving far more to the nation than its own cheering physical warmth. It is helping to provide a better life and fresh hope for many rural areas. Wherever you go in Ireland today, you'll see the evidence of an ambitious development program becoming a reality. Here, a new peat briquette factory is going up. When completed and in full swing, it'll produce 100,000 tons a year. A 100,000 tons of briquettes. That's some output, says the journalist, quite impressed. But what happens before that? How in the world does something soggy and shapeless like peat get itself turned into neat little blocks like these? Well, to answer that question, it was back to the bog again. Not a sod peat one this time, but a bog for milled peat. These are so vast that many of the machines are working 5 miles or more from their base, with which they must keep in touch by means of shortwave radio. Should any one of them develop a fault, headquarters can be warned immediately and the emergency service put into effect. Peak activity is May to September, when it is vitally important for every machine to function fully all the time. Whenever repairs or adjustments are needed, a maintenance team can be told off for action within seconds. Nobody wastes time on a peat bog. Nobody can spare it. Everything, men, machinery, and organization, coordinated all the time to only one end: getting the harvests in, 18 of them in a milled peat season. The production of milled peat begins, naturally enough, with the milling. This is a specially designed tractor fitted with an attachment that breaks up the surface of the cutting field to a depth of about half an inch. Spoon harrows turn the finely milled surface over and leave it in long, even ridges to dry in the sun and wind. These won't turn back for another run up the field until they've travelled to the very end of the bog, 3 miles away. Yes, big distances are involved. Not surprising there has to be a special bog railway system to carry men and materials to work, with its own rolling stock and over 300 miles of line. Now, it's one thing to have hundreds of tons of milled peat thinly distributed over thousands of acres. It's another matter to collect it all together, and that is where the ridgers come into the picture. With their 40 feet long aluminium blades, they ease the milled peat into a ridge at the center of each cutting field. Then, by a sort of leapfrog process, gigantic harvesting machines gather up the ridges from one field after another. They move them to steadily growing piles, each of which takes the produce of 10 fields, till they end up with the total crop, all ready for transport by rail. The better the weather during the vital summer months, the better the harvest. No wonder the board employs special weather forecast services. No wonder, too, that nightfall brings no respite. At the height of every season, an army of 7,000 men is at work night and day. To manufacture 1 pound of peat briquettes, it takes 3 pounds of milled peat. This means that every year the factories need 750,000 tons of milled peat to produce 250,000 tons of briquettes. What becomes of all this surplus weight? Well, some of it is used as fuel in the factory's furnaces, and the rest is evaporated as steam, for milled peat contains 55% moisture. First, it's screened to ensure the particles are reasonably uniform in size. Then it passes through high-temperature dryers to reduce its moisture content finally to a mere 10%. Lastly, compression to the tune of 5 tons per square inch. Yes, it's pressure alone that gives the briquette its firmness and its shape. No binding materials, no secret ingredients. Every peat briquette is 100% fuel, the cleanest, most convenient there is.
It's certainly clean to handle, not like coal. How does it compare for heat?
2/3 as much, but every bit of it burns. Peat's cheerful, and it's cheap. Very few families in this country would ever go back to anything else.
How's this for a lead-in, then? Ireland is burning her bogs to heat her homes.
No, you got it wrong. No, domestic briquettes account for only about 1/4 of all the milled peat we produce.
What about the rest, then?
Look, this country is being transformed. It's becoming an industrial nation. And industry needs power. Cheap electricity and plenty of it. So this is how our government saw it. Why bring oil from halfway around the world? Why import coal? The quality changes all the time. So does the price. Why? When we have a first-rate fuel right in our own backyard. Here's the flow that keeps the nation in good heart. Straight from the bogs to the Electricity Supply Board power stations. Some of the largest are using milled peat, blown direct into the boiler furnaces. Others are using sod peat. A new pattern of power is emerging in Ireland. Build the new power stations near the new fuel, right beside the bogs. Electricity is something people always want more and more of. Every day, more is flowing into the national grid. More electricity, produced by peat.
Ireland, naturally, can put to good use most of the peat she produces. But many overseas markets are growing increasingly aware of its potentialities. Well established by now is the peat run from Drogheda to London, and mill peat from Ireland is by now a familiar sight on England's River Thames. On the south bank at Wandsworth, the Southeastern Gas Board uses large quantities of it every day in the production of a special form of smokeless fuel. But peat isn't exported only in a milled state. In many places across the seas, it's far more familiar in another form. Every year at the Chelsea Flower Show, Shamrock brand Irish peat moss, already very well known in horticultural circles, wins more new friends from all over the world. Its crumbly texture makes it an ideal soil conditioner, bringing air and lightness to the heaviest land. And all over Great Britain, it finds an enthusiastic market among smallholders and gardeners, private and professional. Mushroom growers in particular find it ideally suited to their special needs. In the Channel Islands, Irish peat moss plays an important part in growing tomatoes. In the Canary Islands, it finds a different use, packing new potatoes for export. In fact, in many foreign parts these days, you will find a little bit of Ireland. And which little bit does it come from? Kilberry, County Kildare. Here, the board has developed a special bog of light, mossy nature for the production of peat moss. The sods must be left exposed to frost for the whole winter to make the material friable. Although there is a good deal of handwork in this process, there's plenty of mechanization, too. Powerful compression is used to form the big bales of peat moss sold to bulk users. These neatly squared up packages stand up to handling and transport without risk of disintegration. But how has our friend the journalist been getting on all this time? Well, his voyage of discovery is practically over. This is his last port of call. In the Newbridge Research Centre, experts devote their time and knowledge to devising better means of production, more efficient methods of utilization, and to developing new composts for horticulturalists. And they're just as closely concerned with such homely matters as improving the performance of domestic appliances, peat burning, of course, better heating for the home, cleaner and more efficient means of cooking. Every year, scores of research problems are tackled by the specialists of Móna. Understandably, when the management of a factory or a hospital or hotel begins to consider a changeover to peat-fired boilers, they need to know a great deal about what is involved before making a final decision. The board anticipates their questions by offering advice on the redesign of existing plant and the replanning of boiler house layout. Estimates are given of probable costs and probable savings, so that the prospective client is fully armed with solid facts and figures to help towards a solution of his problem.
I wish they could help me solve mine. How am I going to get everything I've seen in the last 3 days into one little article? One. I could use a dozen. Another thing I've got to find is an angle, a slant. Something like this has got to be presented right.
Why don't you tell him what you saw down the old bog road?
That old stuff? No, thanks. No, my angle is going to be that map.
What map do you mean?
The one you showed me that very first day. Board and the Móna activity over the whole country. Right here in Ireland. Not many know it, but slow and steady, there's been going on a new kind of industrial revolution. Unobtrusive, maybe, but still a revolution. Why, I bet even the Irish haven't got much idea of what's been happening these last few years under their own noses, or in the county right next door. A revolution with future possibilities, undreamed of. But right here and now, it's bringing prosperity. Prosperity to thousands of families. Opening up areas that before were just deserts. Yes, sir, cold, boggy deserts. Look at the seaboard in County Mayo. Bleak, desolate, wasted. Now Board and the Móna's in there turning it into something. And talk about mechanization, there seems to be nothing your fellows don't know. And here's another thing. You're just not interested in second best. It's got to be first best or nothing. And that goes for men, machinery, or equipment. But you know, Mr. O'Malley, there's just one thing that bothers me.
What's that?
What happens afterwards, when all the peat is gone?
Yes, what will become of the bogland when, in the distant future, the last peat has been claimed, the last machine has left, and peace once more crowns its solitude? Will it be left just to the birds and its memories? No, it won't. Once the peat has all been cut away, it will be ready for a new lease of life, for afforestation or for agriculture. The land will be born again. That, then, was the answer to our journalist's final question. And these are the words with which he ended his closing paragraph. So, where once only desolation ruled, trees will rise once more to give a new magnificence, a new wealth. Where only tufty heather clung to soggy ground, grass will grow, slender and sweet for pasture, or corn, nodding its sunny head for harvest. Small wonder, then, what we in Ireland claim, that our new peat industry is changing the face, the fortunes, the very future of our land.